Hey, everybody, I'm Tommy, and you are on the Love Boat. What's happening? You know what? I was looking at Jane Aldrich's comment that said the Epstein staring him out at her was creeping her out a little bit. Didn't want to do that to you for 5 more minutes. I actually was going to go at 7:05. That's my normal time. I figured we'd fire this up a little bit early. Jane, Eileen, good to see you. Hope I said that right. Timothy Glass, you're a class act, man. Johnny Scoville's in the house. If you did not see the Johnny Scoville video that he did earlier, I'm sorry. I really am. You're going to want to go and see it. It's just one of those videos that absolutely blew me away. Just Joan, good to see you. Kristen Melinda, how are you? Hey, Jane Aldrich, you are a rock star. Just Joan, how are you? Glad that you're here. Let's see here. Look at that. I can't use this touchscreen thing. What am I doing? I know better. It's just been a while, apparently. Taylor Miller, Joey Girl, how are you? B-Lady, there you are. Honey, good to see you. Joey Girl, Taylor Miller. I'm going to tell you something, folks. This one is off the chain. Do me a favor and go smack the thumbs up button before we get rolling. There's nobody that ought to miss this. Todd, I swear to God, I said to my brother before I went live, I'm going to be butthurt if Todd's not in the chat tonight. As a fellow donor of the occasional tinfoil hat, you might want to keep your hands inside the boat. This one is going to get rocky. This is absolutely off the hook as one of the most disturbing days I have ever had of research and doing things. Tony Suter, how are you? I'll keep it real, folks. I mean, I have a skill set, right? And it helps if you know your skill set. Bohemian Luciferian Witch, good to see you. Glad you're here. It helps if you know your skill set. And for all intent and purpose, I'm a really good parrot. Hey, Mary, how are you? Monk, 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 monk. Brought the tinfoil hat, Monk. You're going to need it. I promise you are. And the crazy thing is none of this is conspiracy. I wish some of it was. I wish some of this was even debatable. But as I was about to say, I got into trouble doing the Diddy stuff as a parrot. I can go watch somebody else's stuff. I can watch 5 people, 6 people over the course of the day. It's not going to sound like I ripped anybody off because I'm taking it from so many different sources. But what I'm doing is parroting back things that I heard on the internet or I heard on YouTube, which is even worse. And I kind of vowed that I was going to get away from this kind of content, period. And that's a disservice because you know what? I'm not bad at it. Megan, good to see you. So instead, I just decided that before I do anything, I'm going to research it. Like I was going to go live the other day and I was going to give you a list of all of the Republicans that voted or didn't vote to bring the Epstein thing to a vote. But instead of running with it like every other person did, I looked up the bill so that I could read it first, only to find out it was an earmark and not a bill at all. Sharon, glad you're here. So I'm doing something that I'm not particularly good at. Cindy G, how are you? I'm researching stuff on my own. I'm not taking other people's work. I'm not listening to other people's stuff, which I used to call research. It's not. Missy Ann, good to see you. Hey, I made the live. I was at Tai Chi during your morning boat. The Epstein mess will either open people's eyes or turn them into ostriches. I'm not sure which one. Well, could go either way. And that's kind of the fascinating thing about this, because there are eyes that are opening. And by the time this live feed is over, I'm not joking you, you're going to see some stuff that I promise you haven't seen other people talk about. And that makes me wonder why. But I'm going to start out with a story about this. And it's also going to give the people who aren't here time to get here, because that's kind of important. I started early. So I'm going to tell you a story. When you start doing research in 2025, I'm not going to the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's probably a shocker, but I'm not. I'm also not going to the big red button. But one of the tools that you can use in 2025 is AI. We had 4 F-35s buzz Salt Lake City tonight for some unknown reason. Tonight, no sports, nothing today. You know what, Todd? We got a lot of people from your part of the world that watch the Lifeboat. Lisa Trimble, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. It was nice seeing you in my brother's chat. That was a hell of a show, wasn't it? If you saw that show, put a 2 in the chat. I see a lot of you that were here, but if you've missed it, man, you want to see it. It is a ridiculously good show. Chickacherry Cola, how are you? Tommy Bird, there you are, brother. I lived at 7612 South, 2700 East, Salt Lake City, Utah, right next to the rec center that has the high dive over in Sandy for a long time. Had a fantastic time living in that city. Met so many great people. One of my best friends lives in Utah. She picks on me on a daily basis, and without her, I don't know where I would be. I'm not going to out her more than that. We'll leave it at that. So here's the deal. Hadn't heard that one in a while, have you? Here's the deal. I started using Kellyanne as a way to knock this down. Hey, Kellyanne, I started to do some research using AI. And this is a fascinating thing because AI didn't want me doing this research. Jeremy Fowler, how are you? I'm not kidding. AI didn't want me doing this research. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Kimberly says I was a smidge late. I was outside taking a picture of the double rainbows. Well, that is a reason to be late. Are you kidding me? What a beautiful thumbnail, Kimberly. That's awesome. It's been a long time since I've seen a rainbow. It made the little kid in me happy. What a great comment. What does Johnny talk about on his show? I assumed it was strictly hot pepper talk. Well, then you're going to want to go over and look at it. I promise you, you should go over and look at it because the answer to that question literally is what happened today. Yeah, what Johnny did is explain his channel. So, and the future of it. It's definitely worth going and taking a look at. And if you don't know my brother, he's kind of a legend. Definitely worth going to look at. You know, I'm never going to see a rainbow here. That's probably something that just, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say it. It doesn't rain very often is what I should have said. It really doesn't rain much. This is Trump. Well, Sharon, I'll tell you what, it's way bigger than that. I'm sorry. It's so much bigger than that. The question for tonight's live ought to be who runs the world, not who runs America. I promise. The question isn't who runs the United States of America. That's where the thing with Epstein is, if we concentrate on Epstein as a child molester, which he absolutely is, the most prolific hebephile, I guess. Pedophiles tend to like people of a much younger age. I believe the proper term would be hebephile. This is people between the ages of about 12 and about 17 was Jeffrey Epstein's wheelhouse. Prefers them in braces. He's a sick, sick human being. Bohemian Grove and the Bilderberg Group. Not a bad answer. Not a bad answer, especially if we're donning the hat. But let me tell you something. So I start doing some research, and I'm just doing basic research stuff like, I'm not asking this thing to write me a story, but I'm asking things like, hey, when was so-and-so fired? Because it makes it a lot easier than me trying to Google it. I can literally talk to AI and it gives it back to me. But during the course of doing this, I stumbled upon some stuff that, for lack of a better way to put it, is evil. And it's so evil that I'm only going to show you a pinch of it. There's so much of it that I can't show you. And I don't care what your religious beliefs are. But I prayed about this before I did this. Because this is a show that when you see what I show you, I want you to realize 80% of it I'm never going to be able to let anybody see. So this ought to give you an idea of where we're at. But we're going to start with a history of Jeffrey Epstein because I don't think anyone's done a fairly decent job at it. Jesse O, you've been avoiding my streams because of the atmosphere, and I feel like this is something I have to share. My friend ended his life 2 months ago. Just turned 27, an aspiring musical student. Jesse O, I'm so sorry to hear that. I really am. I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, I'm glad that you're not suffering in silence because it's the worst possible recipe for what you're going through. Sadly, I know so much about this. It's something I would like to not know anything about. But the number of people that I have worked with and the number of people who were in the chat on the lifeboat who decided to take their own lives or who died from drug overdoses, I could sit and read their names off and it would take me the next 5 minutes. It doesn't get any easier. You just got the news last week from a mutual friend. Well, thank you for stopping by and telling us. I'm going to keep you in thoughts and prayers. Can we get some ones, not just for Jesse O, but for the family and for all of the friends? Look at that. You guys are already there. What a crew. What a crew. Nothing like asking for prayers and seeing them already there. That's amazing. It really is. You guys are fantastic. This is tough. This really is tough. Mary Krause, I'm not familiar with who that is. But as I said, if he's, you know what? You don't have to. It's a pretty cool crew. I think you just did a pretty good job of thanking everybody. That's a beautiful thing. I don't know who that is, but if there's somebody with a YouTube channel, they could be fantastic. I'm just not doing that kind of research anymore. It led me in a really ugly direction when I was doing Diddy. And I feel like I did my audience dirty with a lot of the stuff that we talked about. And I didn't do it. I did it with the best of intentions. And I believed the things that people were saying. I believed I could trust research that people were doing. I can't. If I'm going to come and talk to you about something, it's going to be because I chased it down on my dime. So I have had emails from people that say, I'd love to see the content you're doing on Epstein, but I don't know anything about it. I literally know zero. So I thought I'll put together just a 5-minute synopsis of this guy's past That ain't going to work. We're going to talk about who Jeffrey Epstein is, because I promise you, you don't have any idea. Kimberly, thank you so much. Or perhaps you do, right? Maybe you saw your friend Ryan and he killed it. Maybe he gave you the entire history of this guy. But I think I've come across things I've not seen anywhere. And I don't know why that is. I've got some guesses, and I'll tell you towards the end. But let's start with this. Epstein is a college dropout. Deep diving is right, Megan. Deep diving is right. And Kimberly, you have no idea how much that support means. You really don't. Because I'm going to say things today, I'm not going to get paid on this video. They're going to demonetize this. Doesn't mean they won't run ads on it. Just means I won't get paid. Not sure how that works. But you get this little yellow thing, and it says you get limited ads, and it just kills what you get paid. However, if you tell this story the way it's supposed to be told, you're not going to get paid. It's just the way it goes. Maybe that's why they do it this way. Maybe they don't want stories getting out in truth in its entirety with words that mean things. So he's a college dropout, and he dropped out of a college named Cooper Union. Put a 2 in the chat if you've ever heard of Cooper Union. Sharon, thank you so much. God bless you guys. Put a deuce in the chat if you've ever heard of a college called Cooper Union. My guess is we're going to be limited in the number of people that put chats up. For real. Thank you, Lammy. And the reason for that is that it's not a normal school, right? It really isn't. And I have seen a couple of people report on the fact that he failed out of Cooper Union. And they will say Cooper Union almost with a laugh. It's in New York. And they will say this almost mocking it like, Cooper Union. Cooper Union is, or was at one time, almost on an MIT kind of level for certain things. It is really an amazing school for engineering, and it is an amazing school for mathematicians. Now, allegedly, and I think there's probably some truth to this, the one thing this guy was good at other than molesting kids was math. Apparently almost legendarily so. This guy was amazing with figures and numbers and things like that. Prior to him failing out of Cooper Union, there's nothing. And I mean nothing. And for a person who is as prominent as this guy is, and I don't mean as a child molester, because before the world knew this guy was a child molester, they knew him as something completely different. We'll get into it. But he dropped out of Cooper Union after 2 years. And he was hired, as I told you guys the other day, he was hired by a guy named Donald Barr to work at a very prestigious prep school called the Dalton School. Very expensive. The richest of the rich, the elite of the elite, send their kids to the Dalton School, or did, especially at that time. As a college dropout, he was hired as a math professor, a math teacher, to teach high school kids. Now, I'm going to tell you something. You can put a 1 in the chat, or I'll tell you what, let's make it a 3. Ones are prayers. Put a 3 in the chat if you think a 20-year-old teaching high school kids is a really bad idea, because it is. And it's impossible to find out why he was fired, but he was fired. There are rumors galore, but none of them seem to be able to be something that you can pin down as factual. One of the rumors that's really popular is that this guy got fired because he was wildly inappropriate with students. That seems like it would make a hell of a lot of sense, does it not? Yeah, that seems like something that Epstein would do, especially since this is his wheelhouse, right? This sicko is attracted to people of that age. Jeremy Fowler, you're a stud. Look at that. 5 people just turned green. I love it. So he's hired by a guy named Donald Barr. You may not know that name. Look at you people. Pooh Bear, thank you so much. This is an amazing, God, it feels like old times. He was hired by a guy named Donald Barr. Now, this name is going to become very, very important. Donald Barr worked for the OSS. If you know what the OSS is, you know it transitioned into becoming the Central Intelligence Agency. It used to be the Office of Special something. I had it written down. I don't remember what it is now. But the OSS was the predecessor to the CIA. And then in 1953, they transferred from being the OSS to becoming the CIA. And everybody went with it, right? Most of the people who worked there just became CIA, the first batch of CIA agents, Central Intelligence. Donald Barr did not transfer over with everybody. He went into teaching, which seems like an odd, crossover, but nevertheless, that's what he went into. And it was him that hired Epstein, a college dropout, to work at one of the most prestigious schools, high schools in the U.S. Normally, you would need a college degree for that. That's odd, right? Just a little odd. But maybe his math was that fantastic, right? Maybe it was, Does Trump's lawsuit open him up for discovery? Dane, we're gonna be seeing a lot more about that. And the answer to that question is none of us know. Office of Strategic Services. Thank you, Todd. You're a stud. We don't know what that's going to do, because they say we're going to release all of the grand jury stuff, right? We're going to let all of the grand jury stuff come out. They're going to redact the crap out of that so bad, and they can do it because there's so much in there that's going to have to do with victims and sexual assault of minors. The problem becomes, and Todd, I guarantee you can answer to this, because he also wears a tinfoil hat, and he has done some Freedom of Information Act, some FOIA requests. You can't tell if what they're redacting needs to be redacted. We don't know that they're going to be talking about kids. They could be redacting really important facts, and they seem to be good at that, in my opinion. I got stuff in where you would read 40 pages and see 7 sentences of things that you could actually read, and everything else is redacted. Just black ink over everything. So we don't know just yet, but here's some of the stuff we do know. Donald Barr has a son, right? His name is Bill Barr. You guys know that name. You should. Bill Barr is an attorney. His first job ever as an attorney was to work for the Central Intelligence Agency. And he must have been smoking impressive over there at the intelligence agency as an intern of sorts, because he was then picked when George H.W. Bush, who at the time ran the Central Intelligence Agency, when he became a president, he made Bill Barr his attorney general. And then 4 years go by, right? Clinton gets elected, and he disappears. Bill Barr's gone. He goes and lives his life, which is what's supposed to happen in politics, right? Well, fast forward to Donald Trump's first term in office, and he puts Jeff Sessions in as the attorney general. And if I were to say to all of you, do you guys know why Jeff Sessions was asked to resign? Most people are going to say because he chose to recuse himself on the whole Russia thing, which probably was the right thing to do anyway. Keep it real. I mean, the president hated it, but he probably should have recused himself. He was asked to step down at the behest of the president. He didn't quit. He may have stood out there and said he quit it, but he had a letter from the president that said, I don't want you anymore. Step down. The timing of this is peculiar as hell, and I don't hear people talk about it. The timing of this is peculiar because we all know that Jeffrey Epstein got convicted of being a child molester. We're going to go into details of that are going to make you sick. But when he was convicted of molesting 40 women, young ladies, 40 young girls at that time, underprivileged young girls that he targeted, right, with the help of Ghislaine Maxwell. But when he did that, 40 of them, and cut his plea deal or whatever, the story went away. Why? Because the man who was handling it, a guy by the name of Acosta, ends up becoming a cabinet member in Trump's White House. Why? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he's just really talented, or maybe he was being rewarded for the fact that 40 girls all told the exact same story. Nothing, there was no debating any of this. The stories was the same from one girl to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And you know what they promised him? They said, I know this is hard. I know this is hard, but we're going to put this guy away forever. When you read what some of these girls went through because of this, but they said, you don't have to worry about him. They all said, I'm afraid of him. The guy's, he's powerful. He's going to come after me. He's going to try to kill me. It's going to take courage, right? But trust us, we're going to put this guy away. We have enough evidence to bury him under the jail. Makes it a little worse, doesn't it? It makes it a little worse. But that's the promise that they made to these girls. And then they didn't deliver on that promise. In fact, he got to do weekends. And the part of the jail that he did weekends, it wasn't even weekends. It was supposed to be. So what he got instead was he was supposed to show up in jail every single day and turn himself in at the end of the day, and he was allowed to go out on work release. That never happened. That's complete BS. Never happened. In fact, there's evidence that he left the country while he was doing this. What? While doing just nights that he had to do in prison, he was able to jet out of the country. I've been babysat almost my entire life, right? By probation officers, parole officers, whatever you want to call them. I was a screw up for so long. You don't leave the country on parole. You don't leave the country on probation while you're doing weekends or you're doing nights or whatever the BS sentence, because he was supposed to be going there every single day. Turned out he did about 1 day a week, right? And didn't even pull the full 24 hours. But he had his own wing. There was no other inmates anywhere near him. The door never locked. These girls got screwed, right? First by Epstein when they were raped, systematically. And you know how he got busted? Because not every girl that went there fell into line. There was a girl that freaked out and said, I'm not doing this, because Ghislaine would say, the guy, he's a very, very wealthy dude. He has really serious ties, right, to the guy that owns Victoria's Secret. And you look like you could be a model. You're absolutely beautiful. You could be a model in this. No, it isn't the same prosecutor that's on the Diddy case, right? The prosecutor on the Diddy case is not Acosta. Acosta got a cabinet position and since then has disappeared. And I mean disappeared. He does not want to be seen, right, at all. But so this guy that's supposed to be doing weekends, when the rug gets pulled out and they get screwed over a second time, the case goes away. People stop talking about it. Hell, the former prime minister of Israel visits him. The world doesn't even seem to know that he got convicted. Honestly, small story, no big deal, nothing to see here. But somebody came down there and said, the feds aren't going to pick this up. See, the prosecutor that was handling it actually got kind of pissed off. What do you mean, right? Everywhere he went, people were pushing against him. So the Fed part of it, Acosta in an interview, which he now denies, but in an interview that you can find, Acosta said he was told to stand down, but he doesn't remember who told him. Now I want to tell you something, people. The smell test, here's the smell test. Who could make that order? He didn't get somebody in justice to give him a call and say, hey, we're not going to prosecute that child molester that you've got enough evidence to bury under the prison for the rest of his time on planet Earth. We're going to screw over all those girls that you promised stuff to, and there isn't going to be anything. We're not going to take his property. It's just going to go away, bruh. There's only a couple of people on planet Earth that could have made that phone call. The president of the United States could have done it, but you know that ain't going to happen, right? Trump didn't call this cat. No, this call had to have been made by probably the attorney general, if not one of his minions. But this had to come from the top. You don't remember who it was? He makes it sound like it could have been one of any 5,000 people in government. That's not the case. To get somebody to pull a case like this, and the FBI is involved. In fact, they cut a deal. Epstein was going to deliver something. We'll never know, right? That's redacted. I pulled it. I saw the agreement, but there's this much of it that's not redacted. And in that much, it says, we're not going to prosecute him or any of his co-defendants. So wait a second. So if you found out 4 days later that there was a guy that had raped every one of these girls every day for 2 years, you can't do anything to him. What did he give the FBI, right, to be the first chomo on planet Earth that was able to give something up to get out of prosecution? This doesn't happen with child molesters, with child rapists. You can't cut deals. Drug dealers cut deals, right? Child molesters don't, because of this. They don't want this. They don't want to be the person that was involved in cutting a deal with a child molester when the world finds out about it. And we have found out about it. So he gets rewarded by getting a cabinet position. That smells bad. That smells bad. He went from nobody knowing him to being a cabinet guy. Why? Because he was just so talented. No, because he towed the party line, right? He was willing to do what they ordered him to do. But he doesn't lose his properties. He doesn't pay any fines. He doesn't have to face the feds, and the feds would have buried him, right? They could have RICO'd him. They could have done so much. But one girl said, I'm not doing this, right? This guy's an old freak. I'm not touching him. What the hell? This wasn't what you said. You said I gave the guy a massage. He jumps up with his you-know-what in his hand and tells the girl to get on her knees, and she said, not happening. But amazingly, because they were so afraid that this girl was going to go to the cops, they said, hey, no problem. I'm sorry. Sometimes, Jeff, you're just beautiful. And here's the $200 we promised you. Doesn't sound like a lot of money. It was in the 90s, especially if you were a high school girl who came from a trailer park. I'm just keeping it real. This is what was written in it. They targeted girls that they said lived in trailer parks, girls that didn't have fathers, because dads are going to come after you. They wanted girls that didn't have dads, preferably, that lived on the wrong side of the tracks. That's another quote from them. But they were trying to find underprivileged girls, because $200 is a hell of a lot of money. So they said to her, here's $200, and I'm going to give you $200 more. If you can find any girls that wouldn't be offended by this, we'll give you $200 a head for every girl that you bring in. This did a lot more than create a pimp of sorts, right? It gave them a story, and it's a story that they ran with in all of the papers. This was a little ring, right, of prostitutes. These young girls, they were prostitutes. This is the story they sold the American people. They were prostitutes, and they had a ringleader who was a little pimp. Filthy. But that was the defense in court. Do you understand? That he wasn't out finding these girls. In fact, a girl who was in school with these girls had organized a prostitution ring, and she just happened to sell these girls for back rubs to Jeffrey Epstein, who a few of the girls Jeffrey may have gotten inappropriate with. All 40 of the girls described the exact same thing, and they were raped by him, all of them. By the way, if you're wondering about, you can't have consensual sex, right? As a 48-year-old guy with a child. So there's no such thing. It's rape, no matter how it went down. But a lot of them were physically forced, right? When they got scared, that wasn't an option. This is horrifying. I'm sorry that you got to hear it. But it's essential because this is all going to tie together in a way that you've never seen. That is so friggin' disturbing. So Epstein dodges this whole case and gets the sweetheart deal to end all sweetheart deals. 2 years of doing just nights. And he didn't do anywhere near 2 years of nights. In fact, he averaged about a day a week. And they let him off after 13 months. We wonder why 63% of rape victims don't come forward. For real. Imagine coming forward and telling your story, letting the whole world know what happened to you, only to find out that the guy's going to get 13 months and he's got a key to the front friggin' door. He was never in a cell that had a locked door. So when people ask me, if the guy killed himself, why would he? This is the first time, not the first time rather, that Jeffrey Epstein had dodged a bullet. He had a company called Towers, right? And it was an investment company. We're going to get into how he got into investments from being a substitute teacher. But his partner got sent to prison for 18 years. Right before he did, they ran the business side by side. And I promise you, the brains of the operation was Epstein. And I can prove that. I promise. But the other guy gets 18 years. You know what Epstein got? Millions of dollars, allegedly about 100 million, which he took and hauled ass out of the country with. And then once he had it secured offshore, literally, most people think in Israel, he came running back and said, I got a deal for you. And he walked in and cut a deal to testify against his partner. He got not 1 day, and his partner got 18 years. Right? They're both charged with this crap. He gets $100 million tax-free, and his partner gets 18 years. Why would Epstein kill himself? This cat wasn't worried about prison. He wasn't worried about anything. You will see. This guy had no fears in life from authority. After he leaves Dalton, a parent, right, that he met during his time there, ends up hiring him to work at Bear Stearns. This guy's name is Ace Greenberg. Now, I don't know how Ace Greenberg didn't know who this guy was, because allegedly the word was he was wicked inappropriate with students, which is why he got fired. How does a math magician whiz get fired for being a math teacher? Well, he goes to parties with the kids, which he did. This part is not disputable. He would attend high school parties. He was 20. You hire a 20-year-old to teach 17-year-olds, and when he finds out there's a party, he goes to it. Right? This happened. But it didn't seem to bother Ace Greenberg, who ran Bear Stearns. Bear Stearns was a bank, went out of business when a lot of the other banks were tanking, did a lot of stuff with investments. And he was hired to hide money for the ridiculously rich. His math skills were a bonus. He was a handsome guy. Say what you will about Epstein. He wasn't ugly. He was a good-looking dude. He was very charismatic, they say. Had a great sense of humor. Everybody liked him, except the people he was molesting. But everybody seemed to like the guy. So Ace Greenberg hires him. And his job is to take the money of the ultra-rich and hide it. And, not in the traditional sense of the word. Not stuff like, if we invest in this, it's sort of a tax haven or it's a tax shelter. No, literally hiding money. And he didn't last long. He got fired. I hope not, Jake. But by the end of this, I think you really ain't going to buy it. So he gets fired from Bear Stearns. And the reason that he got fired is he got an FCC violation. They don't dig that. Offshore accounts, yeah, B-Lady, to some extent. And in some cases, way more complex, way more creative than just getting somebody a bank account in the Isle of Man. This is pre-internet. So to chase down transactions and stuff is difficult, but it is not impossible, right? It's not impossible. And we're gonna see a little of that later. But He ends up getting fired from Bear Stearns, but no hard feelings. He and Ace remain best of friends. I guess this is the kind of thing that happens to this kind of guy, right? But this guy introduces him to a guy named Douglas Leese. Now, if you are from Great Britain, you may recognize that name. But Doug Leese was on his way to the Pentagon, right? By now, he's 28 years old, Epstein. And the next time we can see him, and I mean see him, because he tends to disappear. And by that, I mean, you can't find out where he is. You can't find out what he's doing, right? Did he steal for these companies and individuals? Taylor, I promise you I'm going to answer that question. Stick around. Because it certainly looks that way. However, not at Bear Stearns, he didn't. At Bear Stearns, everything he was doing to try to help the clients. But the government caught on. So he got, and if you get an SEC violation, a big company like Goldman Sachs or Bear Stearns, it's just going to cut you loose. They can't really risk having you around after all that. So he kind of disappears. We don't know where he is. We know that he opens his own company, right? In his own name. He's got the Jeffrey Epstein Company. It was the first business that he opened on his own, right? Alone. Now, the next time we see him, because we can find it through a manifest, the next time he pops up anywhere, he's on an airplane with a guy named Douglas Leese. Douglas Leese, there was a arms deal called the Ali Amana arms deal from Great Britain, the biggest deal they ever made. They were selling guns to the Israelis. So he's on this plane. And where's he flying? To the Pentagon. So Jeffrey Epstein, who failed out of college in his second year, got a job at a prep school without a degree to teach mathematics, partied with the students. We don't know if he raped any of them, but they let him go. We don't know why, but they let him go. And one of the parents of the students introduces him, hires him on at Goldman Sachs, at Bear Stearns. And he gets fired for breaking the law, right? Not good. Hold on one second, I'm gonna blow my schnoz. Not really a great resume builder, right? That your first job in finance, you get fired for violating the Securities and Exchange Act in 1933. Not great for a resume builder. However, this guy, Douglas Leese, he's not really hung up on that. And the reason he's not is arms dealers, Adnan Khashoggi, Douglas Leese, these guys that sell guns to countries, right? I got caught for selling guns. I went to prison for it. I sold a handful of guns. These guys sell tens of thousands of guns, rapid projectile grenades, RPGs. They sell tanks. You probably saw a movie or heard of a movie called Dogs of War. We don't know exactly who that thing is based on because there's a lot of rumors about who it is. But you could make it Douglas Leese and this thing would just make as much sense. The movie would make sense if it was him. I promise you it would. But these guys aren't arms dealers. They don't have a bunch of guns at their house, right? But they're getting ready to sell to the Israelis or to the Iranians or to the Contras in South America. It was nothing like that. They are middlemen. They're professional power brokers. They know the right people. However, even if you know a guy who knows a guy who has access to Russia, because keep in mind, folks, that now we are in a time on planet Earth where Russia is failing as a country. Actually, the USSR is failing, and everybody knows it. So if you happen to work there and you're in the military or whatever, and you're on an outpost near Siberia, you start selling everything but the sink. Literally, this is how it went down. And if you look at any war that got fought anywhere, everybody was fighting with AK-47s. It became the most unbelievable weapon of choice in all wars. Why? Because you could get them cheap as hell. Everybody was wanting to get out of there with a little bit of cash so that when the Iron Curtain fell, and it was falling, everybody knew it was. They were looking for a place to land. Where did all these oligarchs come from? These Russian oligarchs? Guess where? They were people that sold off military assets, that sold off chemical weapons, that sold off scientific research that had been done by the Russians. Anything that you could sell was getting sold as Russia was collapsing. The USSR was collapsing. Russia's still there. But as all of this is collapsing, this guy, Douglas Leese, needs a dude who can move money in mad amounts without getting traced. And there's this young mathematician, 28 years old, whose resume is sterling. Failed out of college, got fired from his first job as a substitute teacher for being a weirdo in one way or another. Attending high school parties as a teacher, you're a weirdo. You have absolutely no discernment, absolutely no brain pan. But they hire this cat anyway. Terrible resume. But now he's in bed with Doug Leese, and his job is to hide the money, help move the money so that people don't see it. Now, today, I can pick up my phone, right? Just like you guys super chatted me. I can hit a button and send $20,000 this place or $20,000 that place. No big deal. Easy as hell. 2 million, you can wire cash. You couldn't do that then. So in many cases, when they talk about moving money, they were moving money, right? Like there were times that it wasn't even a banking thing. There are times that it would be a jet filled with cash. Crazy, right? But as it works out, you don't want, if you're a Russian and the USSR is failing, you don't want to take a check. So this guy's flying all over the world, Jeffrey Epstein. Douglas Leese, he's at home in Great Britain chilling. But Doug Leese Epstein is literally moving cash all over the globe for this guy. And it seems he has a little bit of skill in this. And he starts meeting people. And one of the things that you can say about this scumbag is that he was the best networker of all times. In fact, when I'm done talking to you, you're going to come to realize there was a game that people used to play called the 6 Degrees of Separation, right? And it would be the 6 Degrees of Separation of Kevin Bacon. Because you can tie Kevin Bacon to everybody in Hollywood by the movies they've done. And the 6 degrees works like this. I know Kristen Melinda. That's 1 degree. Her husband I've never met, but I'm 1 degree of separation away from her. When this story's done, you're going to realize there is nobody in government that is less than 2 degrees of separation away from this guy. I'm not playing. Everybody knew Jeffrey Epstein in one way or another. Next door neighbors, played at the same golf course. Everybody knew this guy. Everybody. Now, to their defense, he made hundreds of millions of dollars doing all of this illegal stuff. And he became a socialite. Nobody knows where he came from, right? There wasn't an internet to track these people down. So he was just a rich Jewish guy, 28 years old, had a ton of money and liked to party. Here's the crazy thing. So he had a jet that's pretty famous. If you remember the name of the jet, go ahead and write it in the chat, because everybody on earth knows the nickname of his jet. And the nickname is the Lolita Express, right? You guys remember this? Okay. He had a fleet of aircraft. He had a 727 converted into a private jet. A 727. Air Force One for JFK was a 727 converted into a private jet. This is not a small plane, folks. This is massive. The Lolita Express. So if you're not familiar with where the origins or the derivation of the Lolita Express is, there was a Russian author by the name of Nabokov, and he wrote a book called Lolita, based on a true story. It is the glorification of pedophilia. This is the first time you're going to hear that, but it ain't the last. Actually, technically, I told you about the first one the other day, because Donald Barr, the guy that hired Epstein at the Dalton School, wrote a book. And that book that he wrote was science fiction. It's called Space Relations. It was a crappy science fiction novel. Think L. Ron Hubbard. But throughout the book, oligarchs, and that's what they call them in the book, these oligarchs would fly throughout the solar system looking for young kids to bring back and breed and rape. That's the entire book. Foul, right? And odd that this cat that hires Epstein happened to write this book. It all seems very, very weird, right? Coincidences, I'm sure, right? Just a coincidence. But Nabokov writes this book called Lolita, and it's the glorification of taking a 12-year-old, right, and molesting her. It's unrepentant. This is like a dirty, disgusting love story written by a pedophile. And it's not, I've read the book. I've read it multiple times because I had to for assignments in high school and then again in college. It is not the kind of thing that, like, if you were to read it today, you would consider it tame, unless you realize that he's talking about a child. I mean, it's not hella graphic, but it's a kid. So who called it the Lolita Express? That nickname didn't come from Epstein. I think that's wicked important to consider. And I heard somebody a couple of days ago doing an interview who said, you know, has anyone ever stopped to think about who named that jet? Because if it was named by somebody other than Epstein, and it was called the Lolita Express far before this guy got busted, you can find references made to the Lolita Express before he even had a case in Florida, which means that the people that knew this guy knew exactly what was going on. They were all rich, filthy rich. A lot of them were famous. But the people that got on that jet weren't tripping about the fact that when it got to cruising altitude, the back door was going to open and stewardesses were going to walk out, except they're all within the ages of 12 to 17. And they're wearing bras and panties. That's it, right? In thongs. And they're going to come out and go, Mr. Scoville, right? Or Mr. Bandy, Mr. Young, would you like a massage? Where are we at on planet Earth, right? We're talking about Trump, and we should. But good God, the fact that he got away with this for as long as he did, and the people that got on this jet watched kids come out, whether you believe this or not or want to, I don't know a man. I don't know one. I don't have a friend that if that happened at 35,000 feet, who wouldn't kill him? If not, they'd beat the hell out of every dude in that plane except the pilot. And when the plane landed, the pilot would be in some trouble too. Everybody was complicit. And the people, somebody that saw this shit show, when they got off, gave it the nickname the Lolita Express. And then all of the people began to refer to this guy's jet as the Lolita Express, his fleet of jets. He had a Gulfstar, he had a converted 727. He had a lot of jets. And why not? College dropout, right? Former school teacher who got fired. Then he works at Bear Stearns and gets fired. His dealings with Douglas Lease didn't end the same way. He was deemed a success, right? Big time. The biggest arms scandal we ever had in the United States of America was the Iran-Contra affair. Put a deuce in the chat if you're familiar with the Iran-Contra affair. This was, right, not allegedly, this was the government's way of getting around a law that had been passed in the United States Congress. So the name of the law was the Bolin Amendment. It was actually tied like it was tied to another bill. It passed unanimously, which is a rare thing in the good old US of A. But it passed unanimously, 477 to 0. Nobody was against this. You know what the amendment said? You're not going to give $1 to the people fighting the Sandinistas. The Contras, who were Democratic, they were rebels, right? One man's freedom fighter is another man's rebel. We called them freedom fighters. And we were so afraid that communism was going to make its way to the United States of America. See, if one country fell, it would go tit, 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 tit. Ecuador would go, right? Brazil would go. And the next thing you know, they'd be on our doorstep. The Mexicans would be communists. We were pretty damn afraid of communists, right? This was still in the days of the superpowers. When someone says third world, that expression meant it wasn't Russia and it wasn't the United States. Now it means something foul. But it used to mean if you weren't in the United States or if you weren't in Russia, you were in the third world, one of the worlds that wasn't part of the superpowers. But we were still terrified as a country of communists. So they knew that Reagan, a hawk, right? Like him or hate him, the man was fond of carrying a big stick. He liked to play the cowboy role. And there are people that think he ended the Cold War that way. There are people that hate him. There are people who love him. I don't care which side you come down on this. But there was this Bolin Amendment that said, you will not give them $1. We're not getting involved in that conflict. Not $1. They went a little bit farther and said, you can't give them $1 in aid. You can't even send them food. There is no way at all, right, that there is any chance this can happen. So everybody's in agreement. They all do that nodding thing. And then they do what they do in government. And here's what they did. They funded them. But they funded them by sending arms to Israel. We had no problem sending arms to Israel. So the arms would go to the Israelis. And then the Israelis would give weapons to the Iranians, our enemy. These are the people that just kidnapped, right, all of those Americans and held them hostage. This is fresh in the minds of everybody in America. Iran is our enemy. Then why would we give them friggin' weapons? Well, because we wanted to hook up the Sandinista, the Contras, to fight the Sandinista government. So it isn't treason, folks. One of those things would be treason. We were doing double time on treason. By the way, I'm a guy that votes that direction. But if you find something that stinks and you don't talk about it, then you're a hypocrite or you're a piece of, you're an ideologue. I'm not that cat. So they wanted to come up with money to send to these guys and arms. And how did they do it? Well, they sold arms to the Iranians through the Israelis. And now what starts to happen is you start getting these relationships where a lot of dirt is going on between our country and the Israelis and the CIA and the Mossad. And you know who else is in? MI6. How is it that all of these intelligence companies can have somebody go from one to the next? It's like freelance spies, because Epstein worked for all three, folks. I promise you, he worked for all three. So the guns go to the Iranians, right? The cash comes back, and we can now take that cash to fund the war that's going on with the Sandinistas and the Contras. And then they had a hell of an idea. Since we're down there dropping off all of these weapons, right? And this antiquated stuff, these are all Russian weapons. We got nothing to worry about. That's why we had no fear when Desert Storm was coming. The people in the White House knew that that war was going to be over in 48 hours because all of the weaponry was bought illegally from Russia. This stuff was, so when the USSR fell, all of the weapons ended up in the hands of Saddam Hussein and everybody else. And we kept developing new systems. So we had no fear at all. We knew we were going in there and it's like bringing a gun to a knife fight. But back to Iran-Contra real quick. While you're dropping the guns off, there's no reason to fly home with an empty jet, right? Fill it with blow. Fill the entire jet with cocaine. And then they found a guy, Freeway Ricky Ross, and showed him how to cook that cocaine into a new form of smokable cocaine. Didn't have a name yet. It ended up taking the name crack, and they were just going to sell a little bit of it in LA. That way they could have enough money to really get some good weaponry into the hands of the Contras so that we didn't have to deal with all this damn communism. Guess who's right in the middle of it? Well, a cat named Adnan Khashoggi, biggest arms dealer on the planet at that time. Again, he doesn't have a garage full of weapons. He's a power broker. He's a middleman. And he needed somebody that could help move the money around. Yeah, this is no joke. Jeffrey Epstein was knee-deep in the Iran-Contra affair. Like, you got to be kidding me, man, right? For real. Wait a second. This guy's been effing with our country since I was a little boy. The Iran-Contra affair had weapons coming from Khashoggi, and Jeffrey Epstein had his own company. This is when he started the Epstein company, and the only client he had was Adnan Khashoggi. And why not? You're a dropout from college who got fired from his first job as a substitute teacher for doing inappropriate things. Your next job, right? No one really knows what the hell you did. However, your partner ended up going to prison, right? Doing 18 years. Everything on this guy's resume sucks, but not for this kind of work, right? He became known as the dude you could call to do illegal crap when it comes to hiding money. So think about Iran-Contra. Our government was dirty, filthy dirty. No getting around that, right? And when I was younger, I didn't believe any of it. I thought it was just the left trying to smut up the right. George H.W. Bush, first George Bush president, used to run the CIA. When he did, right, he had Bill Barr working there, and he was helping out with what was the Church Commission. The Church Commission was the first time they tried to shut down the CIA. It was the first time that they went, whoa, these people are out of control. Something's got to be done. The CIA's running the country. They were right. But they needed somebody to clean that up. And you know who did? That little intern was fantastic. Bill Barr lit the place on fire. So now he was called on again as a fixer to come in and clean up the Iran-Contra affair. And he did. He went in there and made sure that when it was all said and done, one of the people who was responsible, and not responsible for doing it, but responsible for facilitating it. There was only one guy that really got prosecuted and anything really happened to him, right? Well, two. But the one we all know is Oliver North. He was just a guy in the military. Lieutenant, I believe. Or no, Colonel, I'm sorry. Colonel Oliver North. He was hip to this. When he testified in front of the committee about all this, and they asked him what was going through his mind when he first heard. Now, they didn't admit to the blow, but they absolutely admitted to us selling crappy weapon systems to Iran to take their money and buy good weapon systems and bring it to the Contras. Why would we fund a country that had just kidnapped our people? A country that we knew without a shadow of a doubt hated us. And do you know why they hated us? Because before Ayatollah Khomeini was there, they had a guy named the Shah. And the Shah was not a nice guy. They may have sold us that line of crap when I was in high school. But when you find out how the Shah treated his people, you can understand why Iran hates the United States of America. See, he was a puppet They call them puppet regimes. You set somebody up, and for all intent and purpose, the CIA runs your country. But you get a Mercedes-Benz stretch limousine, and you get to do basically anything you want. You get rich as hell until they decide to overthrow you. And the religious extremists took over Iran, the Ayatollah Khomeini. And then they kidnapped a bunch of students and released them as the new president, Ronald Reagan, was taking the oath of office. They were putting those guys on the airplane. Seems kind of convenient, right? The deal was in the works forever. They wanted to make the Democrats look bad. The more you research this, the more you realize that we're just effed up. But so now, fast forward, right? Fast forward. Through the process of all of this, Epstein is introduced to a big-time player, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell. And this guy's history is fascinating. He's Czechoslovakian, and he was fighting in World War II and ended up in France trying to join the resistance because Czechoslovakia had already fallen, and he snuck out. This, of all of the people that I researched, this guy's a stone cold killer. Like, this guy really was the real deal. He was a James Bond kind of guy. And he was a country unto himself, right? I pick on sovereign citizens as a movement because they just get arrested and beat up. And in prison, it's crazy how many people talk about it. You know, they can't convict you for any of this stuff because I'm a sovereign. I'm like, dude, you're sitting in prison next to me. I don't think this worked. But Maxwell considered himself a bit of a sovereign citizen. He was a guy without a country. He didn't believe in Czechoslovakia anymore. He's in France. France was not really the hotbed place to be if you were trying to. There was a lot of action in France. So he goes to England, where he joins the military, volunteers to join the military in England, and gets given the second highest medal that you can get there. And he didn't do it for participating. He stormed a 50 caliber machine gun nest. Guys in there shooting bullets this big that are coming out, hundreds of them a minute, maybe thousands a minute, right? Belt guns. Just, he's running into it. And in the process, apparently saved a bunch of people's lives that were pinned down. The guy's a hero or a psychopath. I don't know. Could go either way on this one. But when it was over, they pitched him on Zionism. They pitched him on fighting for Israel. 10 years later, he's elected to parliament. That's a busy mother jumper right there, isn't it? I mean, this guy's resume is crazy. He has gone under 9 different names in his life, right? I had an alias or 2. 9 is impressive. And he had passports for most of them. This guy was tied into the Mossad, right? Or what was going to become the Mossad. He was working with MI6. Again, another dude who can work with every single one of these intelligence agencies at the same time. So they got to be cool with it, right? How does a spy not know that your spy is working for another agency? We must be really shitty at this, huh? Everybody. No, this guy just went where he wanted. And he worked with who he wanted. He ends up being given a crap load of money by a banker. And how exactly it goes from getting some money to owning the Mirror Group and owning the Daily News in New York. He was Rupert Murdoch, the guy that owns Fox, before Rupert Murdoch was Rupert Murdoch. He was a billionaire, and this is going to sound dumb saying out loud, but he was a billionaire when a billionaire was a crap load of money. I mean, obviously, it's still a lot of money. I'm still, about $1 billion shy of being a billionaire. But this dude had $1 billion. In today's world, it would have been 2.5, something like that, per billion. And then he did something funky, which has happened through the dawn of man. But this is probably the first guy that we know of openly who did this for espionage and things like that. One second. Sorry about that, folks. My nose runs with the air conditioning. I know it's killing you guys. But so this guy Maxwell starts to borrow money from himself. He's going into the pensions, the pension account. Every huge business has a retirement plan for all of its people. And those retirement checks, like you match a certain amount each week, like your 401k or whatever, they had a pension fund. And they're massive, right? You got that many employees that are pumping money into it every month, and it's growing, right, exponentially. He started to dip into that fund for Israel. You need to do a weapons deal? What, $25 million? I got this, don't trip. He'll go into his own people's pension plans, take out the 25 million, get the deal done, and within the next 3 to 6 months, the Israelis would put the money back in. And he was doing this a lot. He was such an unbelievable help to them. It was incredible. And like no one else, right? This guy was in Parliament. When he died, you think he might get buried in England, Great Britain. No. He got buried in Israel. He got buried in Israel with a full ceremony with heads of states, current prime minister and president, former prime minister. And Yitzhak Rabin, at his speech at the guy's death, said, he has done more for our country and our nation and our people than we could ever say. Boy, no joke, right? So how did he die? He had an accident and fell off the back of a boat. Only he didn't. None of the doctors could agree on a cause of death. Go figure. But he had injuries. This guy was a fighter. He stormed a nest. Why did they kill him? This is when I get back to Epstein. Why I think the guy's dead. Why they wouldn't leave this guy alive. This kind of proves my point. He had done more for the Mossad than anybody, right? That's them saying it. They're going to give him a place of burial where he can see the wall, right? Like it's like being put at what's our cemetery called again? The one in somebody help me. Anyway, you know the cemetery where we walk, where the tomb of the unknown soldier is, where the remains of JFK. It's in Virginia. It's a really beautiful. You see the images of 1,000 crosses, and it's just Arlington. Thank you very much, Just Joan. I'm going to give you some credit for that since you got that up there first. Arlington. This is their version of it. This is the pimpiest place. This is the highest honor that they could possibly give out to a Brit. Odd. But here's what happened. All of that dipping into the pension fund, the Israelis paid him back every single damn time. Only he started doing it for other reasons, personal ones. He started taking money out of the pension to buy things, to party, to make investments. He was stealing from his own company, and they were onto him big time. And they were talking about charges being pressed. There was an article being written about him in a newspaper, and he goes to the Mossad and says, hey, I need your help. Anytime you asked me for help, I did it. I dipped into this thing for you guys every time you needed me to do it. I need you to help me make this right. So if you got to take out the people that are pissed at me, or you got to put the money back in the account, or whatever you got to do. Now, I'm fictionalizing the conversation. But we do know that he went to them and said, we need help. A former agent in a book tells the whole story. Maxwell goes and says, I'm in deep trouble, man. I'm going to lose everything. Susie, good to see you. I'm going to lose it all. So help me, and help me now. This was going to be an embarrassment. He was going to be tied to the Mossad. He's a loose cannon at this point. So the guy that did more for them than anybody else ever had fell off of his boat. The way Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Allegedly, there's satellite imagery of a fast boat, right? Those are things very similar to cigarette boats. It could encompass a whole lot of things, but it is a very proficient vehicle for going very fast on the water. And they sent one out, and allegedly, right, the theory goes that an assassin team went onto the boat and took him out. And he was found dead floating in the sea. And allegedly, right before he died, he signed everything that he owned over to Epstein. He just knew they were coming to kill him. Now, you could say, fell off the boat with an anchor tied to his leg, Jake, that kind of thing, to be sure. And managed to get some bruising in places you couldn't. That's why none of the doctors seem to be able to agree on how this guy met his maker. So he ends up dead. Epstein ends up with all of his stuff. I guess he knew they were going to kill him. Or did all that get filled out after the fact? Or was he such a company man, right, for the Zionist movement that he was willing to take that bullet? Didn't look that way. It looked like he fought back. That's why that's the debate there on the death. But it's not enough to run Ghislaine Maxwell out of the Mossad. I can't wrap my brain around that kind of shit. I can't. You kill my father, I'm coming after you. And everybody you know. But these people live a different world than you could possibly imagine. Right? I mean, for real, this is terrifying, the world that these people live in. And I'm really going to prove that in a little bit with photos and everything. These people live in a world that you don't want to live in. But Maxwell's dead. Before he died, he pimps his daughter to Epstein. There's no way you can make me believe that Maxwell, a professional spy, didn't know Epstein's proclivities, didn't know that Epstein liked little girls. He knew. And what does he do? He introduces the guy to his daughter. Now, if you think, as this stuff started to come out, obviously maybe he backed off. Like, Tommy, you're making wicked, assumptions. You're jumping to conclusions. Not really. You know the picture of Gouffre, right? When the Prince Andrew has his arm around the teenager. She's standing with Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell's in the picture, right? We all know this photo. It's the most famous photo of Epstein as far as the proof that that the prince was a pederast, a pedophile. This is where he got caught. That's not on the island. That wasn't on Little James. That was in Robert Maxwell's house. Trust me, they all knew what was going on. He didn't get the nickname the Lolita Express by accident. Everybody there knew exactly what was going on, right? Sorry. Yeah, you know what?
I don't know. Get you a towel.
Look at this. Thank you for me. I appreciate you. How do I look? Am I all right?
Yeah.
Am I clean? Okay, good. Sorry about that, folks. Sorry about that. Yeah, and thank you for the Arlington. My brain was absolutely frozen up on that. So now we're getting into the part that this gets terrifying. So they make it difficult for the CIA and everything else to move around money. Do you know what the CIA does to fix it? They start little companies like, are you ready? The one that everyone is up in arms about them trying to take the funding from, like USAID. These are companies that are set up to go into a country and help bring food in. They go into a country to help bring aid. They bring medical care. They do all of these things. They're just front groups for the CIA. Why are they so pissed off? Why did all these people say, if you stop funding USAID, kids are going to die? I don't think so. I think kids die because of companies like USAID. And there's a bunch more. I just don't want us to bring too much smoke. But that one's in the news, right? People are in the news right now screaming about defunding that. Maybe they want to defund it because it's just another version of the CIA. This is sad. This is sad. You come to the conclusion that everything you've ever been told is BS, right? The Iran-Contra affair had Jeffrey Epstein working in it. This is not just some pedophile. And for them to say, he never worked for an intelligence agency. Are you kidding me, man? This isn't hard to research. But now I'm going to get to the part of this that's going to creep everybody out in a way that I've never been creeped out before in my life. I promise you, literally, this is about as bad as it gets. If you start researching governments, you can go back to Caligula, right? And governments like that. We get to a point, it seems, when the elites in power get more decadent and more decadent and more decadent. And they begin to do the same things that Caligula was doing, right? Raping underage kids and killing them when he was done. Caligula would have these parties and he would molest little boys, little girls. And when he was done, he would throw them off a cliff that his palace stood right on the edge of a cliff. And for yits and giggles, when he was done, he would take all of them down and throw them off of the cliff one at a time. And you go, that's the distant past. Those are sick people. They lived in a different time. There's no difference than it is today. The reason that this stuff isn't getting released doesn't have anything to do with Donald Trump, other than the fact that he's the unfortunate SOB that happens to be sitting in office. But he's dirty. Make no mistake. We think Jeff Sessions left because he didn't recuse himself, and the president was pissed. He left because after Epstein molested those girls in Florida, on the most dead to right case that any prosecutor has ever seen in history, literally, they had it so tied up in a bow, this guy couldn't possibly defend himself. There were 40 girls. 34 of them had testimony that was called bulletproof. There were a couple of girls whose testimony didn't jive with everybody else's. Well, you start molesting people that are 12, 13, and 14, and you're going to jack their heads up pretty good. I'm shocked that number wasn't higher. But 36 of these girls were bulletproof. I mean, everything that they were saying was bulletproof. And they thought, this is it. We got this guy dead to rights. Federal case? No, not a federal case. See, we're going to make a deal about this. And Sessions is sitting in there as the attorney general until, keep in mind, this case where he got the sweetheart deal, that happened eons ago. It was 2008, I believe. So now we're in 2019, and all of the victims that got screwed in that deal, when they yanked the carpet out from underneath him after doing I promise you, I know this is scary, but this guy's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. You need to be courageous, sons of bitches. After they do this, these girls start calling attorneys. And the amazing thing, folks, no joke, they weren't wanting civil action. The vast majority of these girls wanted justice. They weren't saying, I want to sue this guy. They were saying, what's up that this dude gets this deal? And it starts getting into the word gets around, so to speak. Now, this has happened before. News reporters, Vanity Fair did an article on Jeffrey Epstein. Before Jeffrey Epstein was Jeffrey Epstein. At this point, he was just a socialite. And they were doing a fluff piece on him because he had this big, beautiful home in New York and he had this Palm Beach estate. Very, very cool stuff, right? Make a hell of an article. But somewhere, while she's interviewing people, someone says, you do realize this guy's a pedophile, right? Like, this dude's a freak. He molests people daily, and I mean daily. So he threatens them. The author, he says to her, I'm going to go after you. I'm not talking about suing the paper. You run this thing, I'm going after you. She goes out and there's a bullet on her front steps. Not just a casing like a cartridge, a bullet left on her front porch. That'd freak you out a little bit. And I hate saying what I'm about to say. But when she went to a vacation house, there was a severed head of a cat that they left on her front porch. This is scary stuff. Nevertheless, she probably would have run with the story. Reporters tend to be pretty tough. But it got killed. The same way the ABC story got killed. You seeing how much juice this dude had? How do you kill a story from a reporter at ABC? How do you kill a story at Vanity Fair? This is terrifying. But they couldn't kill the story in Florida. These girls were pissed. A lot of people were pissed. And the story started to come out. Acosta had to leave his position. And apparently, when he was hired, they said, we may have to can you if that Epstein stuff ever gets out. No lie. There are people that said they sat in on that session, that conversation. So what do you do now? Now the whole world is talking about this dude that only did 2 years after molesting 40 girls. And I mean, the whole world's talking about it. Now we know who Jeffrey Epstein is. This is the first time he really popped up on the radar. It shouldn't have been. The number of girls who could have been saved if they had run the first article in Vanity Fair or the second article in ABC. But you see, that's not going to happen. You had the royal family coming down on ABC, right? And who knows who cut the head off of a cat? I'm guessing it wasn't Epstein. I don't think he's the kind of guy that gets his hands that kind of dirty. It's a different kind of dirty for him, right? So now where are we at? Well, now that this story starts to run, and it's a big boy, they can't even do it in one article. It's going to be done over a period of weeks, right? So this issue, and then the next issue, and then the next issue. So they know it's going to get worse. When that first one breaks, and it's talking about how this pedophile got the best sweetheart deal in the history of prosecution, people are getting nervous, big time. That story broke in 2018. The month was November. Jeff Sessions gets the letter from Donald Trump saying that he wants him to quit. 2 weeks after that, the fixer is coming back in. A guy that was already the attorney general and worked at the CIA, right, under George Bush, his first job. And then he was already the attorney general. He was brought in that time because of Iran-Contra. Got a lot of stuff we got to cover up, bud. You need to go out and lie to the American people, and you need to do it with some authority. But this time it's even weirder. For real. What do you think the odds are that you're going to bring in an attorney general whose dad gave this dude his first job? And the dad, for all intent and purpose, worked for the CIA. They didn't call it that then, but they're all tied up in this stuff. Was Dershowitz defending him at that point? Dershowitz was the lawyer who represented him on the case in Florida. Yes. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. My nose is running like a faucet. I'll tell you what, going from the driest climate in the world to one that is moist, you would think would have a very different effect on you. I mean, my feet have healed up. Everything has gotten nice except my nose, man. I get the air conditioning. I'm not used to this kind of the air conditioning stuff, and it's drying me out. Nosebleeds, it's awful. Was Epstein charged with RICO like Diddy? Absolutely not. He was not. They didn't. He was never going to be charged, folks. I don't care what they brought him in there for. Don't believe for a second there was ever going to be a case. Literally, that by the time they were done running the whole series of articles on this guy, Sessions was already on his way out the door so that the fixer could come back in. And within July 6th, he goes into Epstein, gets arrested and put in jail at the Manhattan Detention Center. He's dead in the first week of August, right? Or maybe it was the second week in August. I can't remember the exact date. But he was dead within like 36 days. Why would he kill himself? The law's never been able to touch him. He had a bond hearing coming up for the ability to get out, ankle monitor, that kind of crap, pre-Diddy, right? Pre-Diddy. This wasn't, any of that was all before Diddy. But what happened was when they arrested Epstein and they put him in jail, people started writing articles about him. And the question came up again and again and again. And you know what the question was? Where did this dude get his money? How did this guy go from a substitute teacher to billionaire? Because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. How the hell did he get his money? Everybody writing about him wanted the same answer. How did he get his money? Well, Les Wexner, right? The guy that owned Limited and Victoria's Secret, big fashion guy. He gave it to him. That was the answer we got. Les Wexner has never made a statement about it. No, he doesn't do an interview about it. He will not talk about it. But there are some weird stories that come out about that. One of the things that happened is you have literally just asked a crack dealer to guard 50 pounds of crack. This is Victoria's Secret. Do you realize what this gave this sick bastard the opportunity to do? He could walk around with credentials and walk up to every 12 and 13-year-old girl on planet Earth, or worse, have Ghislaine Maxwell do it, and say, that's Jeffrey Epstein, the financier. And his biggest client is Victoria's Secret. Right now, they're doing talent searches, and he did this. There's no doubt this was done. In fact, to the point that Wexner actually had to say to him, hey, man, this has got to stop. It was becoming an issue where people were hearing about it. But Wexner gave him the most expensive property in New Mexico. Literally, it was a $100 million place. $100 million. Wrap your dome around that. How nice has that place got to be? Now, that's what it's worth today. I don't know what it was worth when it was gifted to him the first time around. Or his townhouse in New York, the one that had the picture of Bill Clinton hanging in the living room. Or any of the other properties, like the island he bought, Little James, or the island that he bought next to it. You know what a 727 costs? I don't either, but I'm betting it's more than 150 bucks. For real. These are ridiculous price tags for a guy who failed out of college. By the way, there is not a record anywhere. You can't find a record anywhere that says Epstein ever traded stock. So one of the times that I got in trouble, I was doing stuff in the stock market. I was actually the president of a publicly traded company once. Obviously not legit. We were doing pump and dumps and things like just bad stuff. But I can tell you things about the stock market. And one of the things I can tell you is, you see movies and a guy's gonna take over a company or do whatever. You don't call a broker and say, I want to buy $200 million worth of Apple. It doesn't work like that, right? Normal folks like you and me can call a broker and say, I want to invest $100,000. But if you're putting up $200 or $300 million, you need to have someone who's going to put you in a position in the company. You're not just buying stock. You're taking a position in the company, which means them rounding up tons of stock. And you buy that much, you're not going to buy it at what it's trading at that day. Because if you were to buy it normally, you would start driving the price up massively. Every time you bought another $1 million worth, the price would go up because people watch for those kind of fluctuations. So if he were to have done any of the crap that he supposedly did to help any of these people, he supposedly helped, we would know about it. There would be paper trails out the wazoo. We can't find a record anywhere that he ever sold a share of stock. But he had a rule in his little company that if you wanted to invest with him, you had to invest $1 billion with a B. I'm not making this up. I don't mean you had to have a net worth of $1 billion, which would still put you in some rarefied air. You're not running into a lot of billionaires then. But that's not what his rule was. His rule was you had to invest $1 billion with him. Nobody does this. You understand? For real. If you're that kind of person, you would have a place like Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs has a friggin' team of 100 people that are going to handle you if you're putting $1 billion in there. They've got analysts, they've got lawyers, they've got people who literally are just there to smile and make you feel good about the investment. They're salespeople that just are going to handle you so that you feel special. That's unheard of, especially back then. So Epstein gets a reputation of being this socialite. He's always on yachts. He can ski, goes all over the world, literally jet setting all over the world. And there are pictures taken with him and everybody of power and influence on earth. You know, we make a big deal about the fact that Trump has pictures with him, and it doesn't make me happy or comfortable. But you know what? Find a friggin' politician that there isn't a picture of standing with Epstein. I'm not kidding. He threw money around, right? He invested in Democrats. He invested in Republicans. He donated money to everybody who was running for office. And you know what? So did Trump. People with a crap load of money want politician friends. But this guy had a crap load of money, and he was working really hard to have politician friends. Ugly. As the story goes, somebody went to him, a friend of Wexner's that he knew, went to him and said, hey, I got someone that wants to invest with you. Now, keep in mind, dude, he doesn't have an analyst on staff. He doesn't have a broker on staff. He doesn't have a compliance agent on staff. He's not that guy. It's not what he does for work. This is a front, right? But supposedly, he was handling Wexner's entire financial portfolio alone, which is insane. But he had power of attorney for over 15 years. Do you have any idea what that means, literally? He can just steal it. He can take whatever he wants. Why? Why would Wexner allow him to do this? Well, I mean, I think everybody assumes that he had a picture of Les Wexner, right, with his hand in the cookie jar. He had pictures of Wexner with prepubescent teens, is the guess. And it's a guess. Nobody knows. But you know what? You don't hire somebody with that resume and say, take over my billions of dollars because you look like a financial wizard. You can't go in there and say, hey, I moved cash around for Adnan Khashoggi, right? You can't put that on your resume. Remember Iran Contra? Yeah, I was knee deep in it. I have gone to the former Soviet Union to negotiate arms deals. I've been to Israel to negotiate arms deals. I've been to South America with the... You can't say any of this crap. So what is his resume? Well, I failed out of Cooper Union after 2 years. I had a job at Bear Stearns, which lasted about that long, and I got fired for violating a legality. I broke the law. I got caught, and I got fired. Then what? Oh, well, then I started a business, so something tower, and well, it didn't go too well. My business partner's doing 18 years in prison, but I didn't get caught, so it's all good. There's no resume. Why does Wexner hire this fool? Well, the theory is that he got on the Lolita Express and he either ended up on that island or when they hit cruising altitude, a 13-year-old gave him more than a massage. That's the theory. And it's just a theory, right? But I can't think of another one that makes sense. I just can't. But I vividly remember when Victoria's Secret models all of a sudden were like 13. How about that? They did get really young. I remember a woman I was with at the time commenting on it. In fact, she made a comment that runway models are this far away, right, from all being illegal. That most of the people that they were shooting, it almost looked like the joke. Honestly, Johnny Scoville and I laughed about this when we were kids. But why do you call it Victoria's Secret? Because the secret is everybody reading that thing is a man. Like honestly, how many women were flipping through the Victoria's Secret catalog? But I knew guys in prison that had them. Like if you could get a Victoria's Secret catalog, that was a big deal. And as a kid, it was a massive deal. But Epstein's running this guy's life. The guy gives him a house. The guy gives him all of this stuff because he's just such a great advisor and such a great business mind without ever buying any stock, selling any stock, transferring any stock. However, he did at one point run to Israel and hang out for a minute and paid $46 million in a wire that we can actually find. You can actually see a transaction of this fool. And he sent $46 million to Les Wexner. Why? Well, they asked Les Wexner that legally. I don't mean news people. What the hell was this? And he said he was repaying money he stole from me, which is a really easy thing to say once the guy's dead. But up until that point, he was just the best guy. You know, he's just a financial wizard. You ought to hire him too. But they bring a friend and said, this guy would like to invest with you. You're going to have another customer. Now he'll have two. So he said, how much does the guy want to invest? They said $600 million. That's a hell of a lot of money, folks. And in that day and age, adjusted for where we are at now, it's probably $1.5 billion, something like that. A lot of money. Epstein said, I don't work with anybody that invests less than $1 billion with my company. So I'm not going to come in and help you, period, unless you, $600 million he turned down. Why? I'm guessing that whoever the guy was, maybe he was really, really devoutly religious. I don't know. Maybe he was a stand-up cat. Or maybe Epstein didn't need anything else. Maybe ripping a guy off and stealing $50-60 million here or there, shaving this, shaving that. This didn't need to happen anymore. He was set. He had his little island set up. He was blackmailing people. He was doing all this stuff. Maybe that's what happened, right? I think that's pretty logical. But now back to that Caligula thing. I start going and I start looking at every one of these governments and just how crappy they end up with this whole theft of innocence thing. And I started thinking about, you want to get demonetized? Holy crap, if I haven't yet. I started thinking about Pizzagate. You guys remember Pizzagate? This was a scandal that happened when Hillary Clinton was running for president. And as it went, the theory is that there were very rich people who were ordering pedophiles from a pizza joint, and there were codes for it. And you know what? Celebrities do weird things that make these conspiracy theories, and I'll hang and say this is a conspiracy theory, because what I've told you just up to now, I promise you folks, none of this is conspiracy stuff. You can look this up. This stuff can be researched. It's out there. But the conspiracy theory side of it says that a lot of these rich people are pedophiles. And this really gained traction when Hillary was running for president. And the guy from InfoWars was really on the front line of this, Alex Jones. And I don't like him or hate him. He has a very large following. And he was shoving this Pizzagate thing down everybody's throat. But then you see people go on talk shows, like the guy from, what's his name? The golf movie. Told you they're remaking it. Never mind. He was on Saturday Night Live. He's the most annoying comedian in history. He's done a bunch of films. Happy Gilmore was one. Adam Sandler, sorry. You see Adam Sandler go on a talk show, and the host says to him, I understand you're an excellent cook. He goes, only pizza. But the best pizza I've ever had in my life was at such and such a house. And the girl that he's with, who was in a movie with him, she was in Friends. It's late in the night, folks. But she's there going, oh, best pizza ever. You can find 500 clips that are weird as hell of actors and actresses talking about pizza in a way that makes it sound like it ain't pizza. Now, doesn't prove a damn thing. And I'll leave that in the conspiracy theory realm, okay? Let's just say that all of that is BS. Jennifer Aniston, thank you. It all sounds like BS. So we'll leave it in the BS file. I don't think it's BS. But we'll leave it in the BS file, and we'll talk about things that aren't difficult to prove. During this time, what really kicked this off was a leaked email, a leaked email from John Podesta's brother, Tony Podesta. That name might not mean anything to you. John Podesta's name does, right? He's Bill Clinton's best friend. He ran Hillary Clinton's campaign, and he is big time in the Democratic Party. I was crapping on the Republicans for Iran Contra. The Democrats are about to get it. His brother, Tony Podesta, is an art collector and a mother-loving weirdo on a scale of 1 to 100 of 98. The email that is leaked is from a woman named Marina Abramovic, and I'm probably saying that, Abramovic, I'm sorry. No CH on the end of it, it's just a C, but everybody I've seen pronounces it Marina Abramovic. She is a performance artist. Do you know what a performance artist is? Me either. I don't. Honestly, I assume it's somebody that uses their body. It's like what I'm doing now, but it's usually avant-garde stuff and it's weird, but it's somebody that becomes the art, so to speak. The email that was leaked was inviting John Podesta and his brother and his brother's wife, Heather, I believe her name was, to a party. And this party was spirit dining, right? Spirit cooking. Now, you might not know what that is. I didn't either. I was incarcerated when that whole Pizzagate thing was going on, so I missed all this. And it's amazing how much I missed it because it didn't end up in newspapers. I got a newspaper in prison, but I got none of this. Connecticut girl here, but used to live in Manhattan, V-Bombs. Oh, New Yorkers. V-Bombs, good to see you. I didn't see you sneak in. She's a Satanist, says Brock Bandy Watts. Keep that thought, folks, because there are a lot of people that believe that this woman is a Satanist. And again, if we want to leave it in the conspiracy theory side for a minute, don't take that the wrong way, because I just want to make sure that no one is saying that I'm doing any kind of tinfoil hat stuff, right? What I'm doing here, let me find the photos, because this is just a hell of a lot of fun. This is our girl. That right there is Marina. So she is a performance artist. Get a good look at that for a sec, folks, if you don't mind. Sorry, I had to blow the schnoz again. So that's her. If you're wondering what the hell she's doing right now, she's holding the head of a goat. It's not a fake one. That's a real dead goat head. That's performance art, right? Spirit cooking. That is performance art. She throws this party, and apparently Podesta doesn't go to the party, but his brother does. I'm going to show you some pictures from this party. I'm going to tell you right now, the stuff I'm about to show you is disturbing. It's offensive. If you don't want to see it, I get it. But this is the warning that you get, because but it's performance art, right? So here is some of the stuff. Now, on the walls at this place, she's written things, right? Spirit cooking, right? Take with a sharp knife, cut deeply into the middle finger of the left hand. Consume the pain, right? Suck the blood in, consume the pain. That is written on the wall in blood, either goat blood or pig's blood. Now, if it's performance art, why couldn't you use paint? Here's another picture. This is of the same thing, right? At a different, because there was more than one of these events. Obviously, she got a little bit more into it on this one, right? Got a little bit more rowdy. This is also from one of the parties. This picture here. This is one of the rooms there. That's a character that I assume is supposed to represent the Son of God. Not sure, but there's the beard, kind of looks like a white robe. And those are body parts that are children's sized. This is art, folks. That is not a painting. This is in a room. So they got an actor, all this stuff. Now, when you get there, they're going to give you the opportunity to eat. This is from a spirit cooking party. It isn't from the same spirit cooking party, right? However, at these parties, you end up eating off of effigies that are supposed to look like dead bodies, sometimes of adults, sometimes of children. By the way, the person to the left side of your screen that you can only see the arm of, I cut that person out intentionally because I didn't want to bum everybody out. You know that person, they're an actor, a fairly prominent one. And honestly, it broke my freaking heart. I might tell you there at the end. This, folks, spawned the Pizzagate rumors. And the rumor really took off when they were telling everybody that Hillary Clinton was a Satanist. This was her friend, and they ran with that. You know, big time ran with it. That's her belly. More performance art. That's not paint. She carved a pentagram into her tummy. Not because she's a Satanist, because she's an artist, right? Kind of how she gets down. That is another piece of her art. That's a snake, a reptile around her head. This is a video, but it's so short that it's almost pointless to try to even get and put up. So I took a screenshot out of it. In the video, the tail of the snake is actually crawling out of her beak. So the head is down her body. But when they start filming, they must have shoved the tail of the snake up her snout. Because as the video starts, there is a snake crawling out of her nose. Just performance art, nothing to see here. Funny thing happens. The whole world says, stop it. This is an artist. There's nothing satanic about any of this crap. This is just art. However, it's art and parties that are attended by politicians, very wealthy ones. And Tony Podesta, the brother of John Podesta, isn't just a brother. He is literally the most powerful lobbyist in Washington, D.C. for the Democrats and their party. Sorry, but that's the truth. Massive donor. And look, nobody's clean, folks. There were all kinds of people that were going to these parties. He just happened to be the most famous and the one that's the easiest to get dirt on, because I'll tell you what, there's dirt. In a big way, there's dirt. Now, I am going to go right now because I would like to show you something. And you're not going to be able to see it as well as I would like you to. So what I need to do is make sure that I've got a nice, good copy of this for you that I can read. This is some of the most disturbing crap. All of this, by the way, is going to give me nightmares. And y'all owe me one. Because the stuff I'm not going to show you, first of all, some of it I straight up couldn't show you, because if I did, I don't think I would just get demonetized. I would probably get shut down, and probably with good reason, because performance art, yeah. So she went on everybody's favorite platform, Reddit. By the way, I didn't go to Reddit. I got this doing my research through AI, and I got a story for you. But here is the Miss Marina Abramovic, or Marina, I'm sorry, Abramovic. And the question is asked of her, what place do you see the occult having within contemporary art? Can magic, spelled with a K, be made, and then in parentheses, not simply appropriated or performed? So you understand the question. What she's saying is, can we really do some witchcraft crap, or some satanic stuff, or whatever it is the person's trying to get out of this? But is there magic that's real, or is this just performance art? Is there room for that kind of stuff, magic in art? Now, keep in mind, this woman has said it's performance art. I'm not satanic. Honestly, she raves about it. Just goes off. People stop reaching out to me. I'm not a Satanist. Here's her answer, though. And maybe this is why people struggle. Everything depends on which context you are doing what you are doing in. If you are doing the occult magic in the context of art or in a gallery, then it's the art. If you are doing it in a different context, in spiritual orders, or a private house, or on a TV show, then it's not art. The intention, the context for what is made, and where it's made defines what art is or is not. There you go, folks. In her own words, if you're doing this stuff at a house, well, then this is occult rituals. I got news for you. You see this? That's in somebody's house. This is in somebody's house. By her own words, these are occult stuff. And here's my argument. You could do it in paint. Ain't no reason whatsoever to do it in blood if it's just performance art. You couldn't tell the difference between paint and red blood. Well, Tommy, how do you know what this is? Oh, man, she films herself doing it. You see them bringing in the blood. You see it coagulating. Some of the most disturbing crap, I'm telling you, what I've spared you from. And I'm sorry, but there's more. Yeah, there's more. But I canned 60, maybe 80% of what I was going to show you tonight. I said in the beginning, I prayed about this. And there's stuff that I just don't think I need to share with you guys. I think the point can be made pretty easily with what I'm going to show you. So this guy, Podesta's brother, keep in mind, you ain't getting any closer to the throne of power than this guy did. For real. John Podesta, right? He's Bill Clinton's best friend. He ran Hillary's campaign. He has worked in the upper echelons of government. His brother, biggest lobbyist out there, has an art collection, 5,000 pieces of art. Can you wrap your brain around that?
His second home.
Yeah, he had to have a second home for art. Now, you're probably not going to hang the stuff you really love in your second home, right? You're going to take the art that you love the most and put it in your house. Now, if you had art that was really kind of creepy, right? Or if somebody invited you to a party and said, hey, we're having this thing called spirit cooking. And when you got there, right, to the spirit cooking party, you came across this in the first room that you walked into, right? Performance art. It's just, you know, images of little kids with their arms and legs cut off. You'd stick around, right? Yeah, you can see that. It's just a party. It's performance art, right? I'm going to show you some of the art that is hanging in Tony Podesta's house.
Trigger warning.
Trigger warning. This stuff's disturbing. But this is what he has chosen to put into his home. And we're going to start. This is brutal. And I pared this down, folks. You have no idea. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Damn it. There we go. This is a picture of a bunch of schoolgirls at the bottom of a pool. This is one of the larger pieces, and it is one of the most tame pieces. But I chose this one because, do you see the looks on the faces, the dark eyes, the things of that nature? Okay. That's a theme that continues to run through most of the art that this dude collects. This is a Serbian artist, and this guy happens to be, this is his favorite artist. That is also kids at the bottom of a pool. I don't know what it is with the preoccupation with all of these girls having their hands behind their back, but it comes up again and again and again in all of the artwork. There are pictures of body parts. So there's a painting and you see a person's body, but the body has a sphincter or a vagina on the body in a place it shouldn't. And it all involves children. His house is a temple to the kind of guy that Nabokov was. This takes one of the biggest places in his house of preference. That's a demon on a bed pulling what appears to be a 4 or 5-year-old girl, maybe a 6-year-old girl, onto the bed, while a peacock, for whatever reason, stands on the headboard to watch. Now, I want to tell you something, and I'm not playing. When I was going through this, this is not, well, it's not, this isn't something that in any way, shape, or form is difficult to research. This sick SOB invited magazines into his house to shoot his artwork. He's not ashamed of this stuff. He's not hiding this stuff. There is art in there that depicts a demon having oral sex performed on him by a girl of about that age, while another demon stands by and urinates on her at the same time. These people threw parties that stars like Lady Gaga attended. I had a bunch of pictures of Gaga, not at this particular event, but at another one, standing next to the artist, Abramovic. In front of her is what looks like a very, like a perfectly square bathtub or a tiled square, whatever. And in it is lying a black guy who looks like he's either been cut up or something has happened because the water's bloody as hell. It's disturbing as hell. The images are just hideous. Will Ferrell was there. Chris Rock was there. That Franco, yeah, Franco was there. The guy that got in trouble for sexually harassing a young woman in an art class, in a drama class he was teaching. You ready for a shocker? Jay-Z and Beyonce attend her stuff. Well, shouldn't be a real shocker because they've kind of been out in the open about some of the stuff that they do. But we're conspiracy theorists if we say that the people in power are sick. We're conspiracy theorists if we say that the people in power are preoccupied with pedophilia. If you had this picture and none other in your house, I would never speak to you again. I'm not woofing you. I walk into your house and that picture is in your home, you have spoken to me for the last time because you're evil. And I don't let that crap near me. I certainly wouldn't let it near my family or the people that I love. And if you're a sicko, I don't want you anywhere near me or my family. So if you own this, that would be the end of us. Now, if you tried to explain it, hey, my brother did this and, he's an artist. I was really trying to kind of help the guy out. By the way, that right there would also get me to run like hell from you. If you're not aware of the fact that the goat head is a massive symbol in Satanism, look it up. Tell me if I'm lying. Baphomet, I believe, is the goat-headed whatever, deity or whatever they want to call it. Scares the crap out of me, to be honest with you. This picture, same thing. Why is that in your house? What about that do they find cool? Because it just scares the crap out of me. And I did time in Lewisburg, right? I've been through Victorville. This stuff terrifies me because the evil in Victorville, I can swing at. I can fight back. The evil that these people are celebrating rises to a level that is supernatural. And if you think I'm a nut job or a conspiracy theorist or whatever, I get it. I get it. I guarantee you that there are going to be people that watch this that go, she's not a Satanist, dude. This is art. She does it just to get people riled up. Okay, why? Why do you feel the need to get people riled up by showing pictures of kids with severed arms and legs? And again, folks, you have no idea what I'm not showing you, especially when it comes to the art, especially when it comes to the art hanging in this guy's house. Tony Podesta. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, you go ahead and look up Tony Podesta's art collection. Do it on Google and then hit images. But I'm telling you right now, if you make that decision, you did it with Tommy Scoville's warning. I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah. For real. It's like I talk about in the morning. Garbage in, garbage out, right? The good thing is, this is the last time I'm ever going to see these crappy images in my life. I promise you. But yeah, thank God. But I felt like not telling people about this. No way, says Megan. Yeah. Yeah, no way, right? Danger, Will Rogers. Good comment. Tons of danger. But here's the thing. These aren't sick bastards that are standing down by the schoolyard waiting for your kid to come out. Now they're just running countries. I did a thing on Macron, and I showed the lifeboat, the picture, his presidential picture. One of the books behind him is written by one of the most notorious pedophiles in the history of France. The guy wrote a book. It's all about pedophilia, and he chose it as one of the books that he's going to put in his presidential photo. So do you think that this is isolated? I'm telling you that we don't know who runs the world, but they get off to the destruction of innocence. I don't know what it is about money, tons of it, or power, or whatever it is, but I'm not joking. I went back and started looking from history all the way up at governments that went off the rails and what happens. And this destruction, they will be deleted. You have no idea. For instance, I'm not kidding when I say that the amount of it is breathtaking. How much of it there is would just take your breath away. And going through it, I aimed for the tame. And I didn't download one image I didn't need to use, I promise you. Because this shit is evil. That's real. Now, whether you want to believe in God or whether you don't want to believe in God, someone that wants art that depicts pedophilia is evil. And for those people that go evil is they're the whole philosophy thing. Is there such thing as evil? You're damned right there is. And unfortunately, it might be running the world. Macron's got a book on his in his presidential photo. One of the books is about pedophilia. These aren't accidents, right? This is literally at the highest levels. And I don't care if you want to be evil. Honest to God, your business, go do what you want to do in your garage. But the theft of innocence, People that get off literally to destroying purity. Nothing is more pure than a child, right? People without blame. There are 1,000 victims. You know why I showed those photos? This isn't for shock value. I could have used one as a thumbnail. It's not for shock value. You want to know what those victims look like? The first shot that I showed you, the hollow under the people's eyes, under the children's eyes. They literally want to capture that image of what a child looks like after being molested and hang it on their wall as art. John is absolutely right. This is all about the definition of evil. The elite very much believe in Satanism. There were satanic rituals at the opening of the CERN particle collider. Yeah, and I'll tell you something. When you're done, you can Google how much Apple chose to sell the first computer they ever made for. They sold it for $666.66. They just dig the number 6, apparently. Their symbol is an apple with a bite out of it. If they didn't sell the first computer for $666.66, then I would have gone, an apple with a bite out of it's a cool symbol. I mean, it's just an apple. But it's also representative of the first sin. Tag that with a $666 price tag, and I don't like you anymore. I'm sorry. Even if it's just something that you want to do because you want to rile people up like Miss Abramovic, right? Why do you want to rile people up in a way that looks satanic? You think that's funny? I don't. See, the thing is this. I believe in good and evil. I don't care what God you're praying to. I don't. And I don't think that I know people. I have really close friends from the lifeboat who call themselves witches, and I don't have a problem with them in any way. They're some of the sweetest people I've ever met. But they don't have art like this hanging in their living room. If they did, we wouldn't be friends anymore. You know what I'm saying? We wouldn't be friends anymore. Because evil exists, and if you celebrate it, how you could hang up a photo that glorifies children being molested. I'm sorry, it's and I'm telling you something. This should have been a 2.5-hour love boat. But I'm not showing you the rest of it. Honest to God. And there's things I'm not going to talk about too. I'm just not. I think I got the point across. But I'm going to end on one thing, because you need to hear this. It's 2025, and I'm doing my own research, and I'm using AI. So I asked AI to show me images from spirit cooking. And AI came back and said, this is not Satanism. That was the opening line. Said her name first. Abramovic's work is not Satanism. It has nothing to do with the occult. It is performance art, and it continued to go on. And I know that the AI isn't thinking. Like, I understand how this works, but I got pissed, right? You're a dumb machine that's supposed to just, so I said, hey, you don't have a soul. I do. Why don't you let me decide what's evil and what's not, and just give me the stuff that I asked for? Amazingly, AI came back and said, you're right.
How about that?
How about that? So I said, so now I'm thinking, holy crap, that wasn't what I expected. And it went on too. It said, you know, if you give me more specific, blah, blah, blah. And I said, so basically, really, everything you say anyway is just the person that designed you. You can't think. So if the person who designed you doesn't believe that stuff is Satanism, why do you think they use real blood if it's not a ritual? They could have used paint and gotten the exact same thing done, yeah? Do you know what AI said? You're absolutely right. The fact that they use real blood definitely makes this look more like a ritual and less like performance art. What? This was creepy. Then I said, I would like to know a list of the people that attended these gatherings. I want to know who went to the spirit cooking parties, because according to the artist, that's not art. That's her words. She wrote that. If she's doing it in a house, that's not art. I don't know what it is, but it sure as shit ain't art out of her mouth. and they use real blood. So I said, I'd like to know who went to this. And it comes back, Tony Podesta. That was the answer. So apparently she threw a party, put 60 seats out, had a whole table set up, rooms all over the place for one guy. So I said, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And I assume that the people who programmed you don't want you to tell me who was at the party. AI comes back and says, you're right. But the reason that the people that program me don't, I'm only allowed to show you things I can verify. And it's verifiable that Tony Podesta attended this. Well, I showed you his art. Shouldn't be shocked. I want to know the people that are going to shock me. So I said, do me a favor then. And why don't you tell me the people who allegedly went to these parties, right? Because I've seen pictures of people at these parties. So I know it's not just her. And then we got Katy Perry. We got that guy Franco that was in the Spider-Man movies. We got Beyonce and her husband. We got Lady Gaga. They started to spit out the names of people that have attended this. And the most disturbing part of all of this is that the people who are designing the artificial intelligence are going to decide for you if something is evil or not. I don't know how you feel about that. But that to me is more frightening than anything that I showed you this evening. Plain and simple. And I showed you some disturbing crap. The question becomes, who is running the world? If I had a country to run, I would not want the people who ran my top secret spy stuff I would not want to allow my citizens to work for any other spy organization and jump back and forth. Jeffrey Epstein worked for MI6. Jeffrey Epstein worked for the CIA, and Jeffrey Epstein worked for the Mossad. He may not have even been wittingly working for them, but he put work in with all three agencies. Why the hell does that happen? Well, because it's all the same stuff, isn't it? Who's ever running the world is running all three of those agencies. It's really easy to get hung up on Trump. It's really easy to get hung up on Epstein. It's really easy to get, but what we're talking about right now is a fight between good and evil. I don't give a crap if it's a list. I don't give a crap if it's a Rolodex or if it's just flight logs, right? Don't semantic me to death. Don't play word games with me. I don't care about any of that. And I hate to do this to you. I'm not joking. I hate to do this to you. But there are 1,000 girls out there who have turned into women, who had to endure the kind of people that hang this crap in their house and celebrate it. The dark sunken eyes, the hollow expressions in these people's faces as they look miserable, right? The death of innocence. This shit's real. I'm sorry it is. But 1,000 victims had to have sex with the kind of people that hang this crap in their house. People that are getting off, not to the fact that this is a young person. They're getting off to the death of innocence. Diddy's an evil dude. He's a really evil dude. Did a lot of shows on him. I think he's a lowlife. But make no mistake, he comes from a long history of lowlifes that run that entire shit show in California with the big sign on the hill. Amazingly, you can actually do something about this. I'm not kidding. And my normal battle cry is, you know what? Go on out there and start contacting your politicians. And you know what? That's a hell of an idea. But I don't think it's going to get anything done. I really don't. If you scream enough, they usually will do something about it. But the odds that you're going to get a politician who is not more than 2 degrees of separation away from Jeffrey Epstein, it's pretty slim. For real. They all hung out in the same places. They went to the same parties. The president of the United States gave him a 50th birthday card and drew a naked chick on it. Now, he put pubic hair on her, allegedly, which probably means it wasn't Epstein's variety anyway. He likes him before that starts growing. He's a really sick bastard. He likes him with braces, too. Just by way of full disclosure, right? This does not mean that it just means that that the president of the United States has got really bad taste, terrible judgment. But at that time, nobody on planet Earth, he hadn't been outed yet as a pedophile. And as I continued to do research, I found out that he was kicked out of Mar-a-Lago. But the story we heard about why he got kicked out of Mar-a-Lago is BS. It is. Allegedly, he said something to somebody that worked there. He was hunting there. It wasn't over something that he said. He hunted there. He got his victims. A lot of them came from there. That doesn't make Trump complicit. The guy owns a lot of properties. He happened to live very nearby, and he was looking for people who weren't rich. And if you go to clubs like that, the people working there folding towels, because that's where he found Gouffre. She was a towel girl. They hunted these people down because they weren't human. Do you understand? Literally. In the minds of that sick SOB, they don't rise to the level of human. And do you know why? Not because they're young, because they're poor. You get it? If you live in a trailer park, the elites don't think you're a human being. If your car is 15 years old, you're not a human being. If your wristwatch costs you $100, you're not a human being. You are expendable. They don't care. And that's why sacrificing 1,000 girls for the greater good, who gives a shit in their world? You're not human. You're not human in the eyes of these people. And then you can go listen to me do 100 times. I have come on and said, I'm bothered by people who hate the rich. Because to me, it has always looked like someone who's jealous because someone else has succeeded. I really am trying not to hate rich people today. You can't paint a broad brushstroke. Everybody with money isn't a scumbag. But I'll tell you something, man. A lot of them that weren't scumbags were really aware of what a scumbag Jeffrey Epstein was. And if you know somebody is a child molester and you know for a fact that your neighbor is doing what Epstein was doing and you don't report him, you're only one rung on the ladder above him. And if everybody in politics knew that that plane was called the Lolita Express, then they all got to go. All of them. Instead of doing something about it, they crack jokes. They all got to go. Can't let any of these people stay. Man, woman, Democrat, Republican, Independent. If they were aware of this crap, and it looks like almost all of them were, then they all got to go. And that's just the way it is. We are all useless eaters in their words. Yeah, I know whose words you're talking about. Money or no money, people do bad things, but people with status, fame, and wealth should be held even more accountable for their crimes. Jake, that makes sense to me. But here's my thing. It seems like that we get to a point where once somebody has everything, you can't give somebody who has everything anything. So they start to get high. But you know what? Those poor guys in the trailer park can buy cocaine. Those poor people in the trailer park, they can buy heroin. They can they can save up for 3 weeks and buy champagne. Don't get it effed up. On the way up, they do stuff like better drugs, right? Drinking nothing but Dom, buying Richard Mille watches and Bugattis and all of the things that money can buy. And when that stops flipping their switch, like any other addiction, all of the things that made them feel special, like they had a star upon theirs, when all of that gets exhausted, you know what you're left with? Apparently the theft of innocence as a drug of choice. I'm bummed out. I'm bummed out, man. It's this isn't a fun show to do. It isn't. because I'm a sucker. For real. I've spent my whole life defending a lot of these types of people because as far as I was concerned, only one political party was evil. And I'll tell you what, that art hangs in the house of the biggest, and I do mean the biggest, of lobbyists that the Democrats ever had. But it doesn't make a crap bit of difference if he was a Republican, because the people that go to his parties are on both sides of the aisle. And the people that are out there stealing the innocence of kids for a high, they're on both sides of the aisle. And if I start saying to myself, well, you know what? There was only 13 Republicans that were molesting kids, and there was over 100 Democrats. And you know what? One of them was a president. Then how effed up have I become as a human being? I swear to God, I've heard people say things. I'm hyperbole. I'm using a wildly over-the-top example, but I have heard people say way more Democrats are going to be on that list of the island than there are Republicans. Are you kidding? How many people aren't on the list but knew this was going on? You think there's anybody in the halls of power that didn't know about this? I don't buy it. Not for a friggin' second. He was involved in Iran Contra. This goes back to when I was a freaking junior in high school. They all knew. They all knew. That's why when the Democrats were in office, they were blocking this stuff from coming out. Then the Republicans get in, they're blocking what's coming out. The Republicans have Bohemian Grove. You're absolutely right. The right wing has Bohemian Grove. And the right and the left wing, well, they got the skull and crossbones, right? If you go to Yale, you can join a fraternity that once you join, they give you $15,000. Do you know that? Anybody that joins that particular, the Skull and Bones Club, you get $15K. That's a hookup, isn't it? You know what else you're going to do? You're going to put one of your fraternity brothers' penis in your mouth so that they can get a picture of it and instantly start pulling you into a club you can't get out of. That's allegedly. That's the kind of crap that happens there. But whatever it is, those fools are dyed in the wool. They don't turn on each other. And you can name Republican, Democrat, and go down the list of all the people in Skull and Bones. It's astounding. Boy, they don't really lean one way or the other. I think they just lean in the middle. And you know what is in the middle of politics today? Evil. They all got to go. No incumbents in the next election. 2 cycles. Would it clean everything out? Probably not. The deep state. And you understand that the deep state's not a conspiracy. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, there are people that never leave government. The day you get to the White House, they're going to come up and go, you ready? Next week, we've got a meeting set up. How the hell do you become a president with no experience? How do you know that you're going to be meeting with the guy from France and this is going to happen? Well, because the deep state people don't really ever go anywhere, right? The people who are just, fixtures in Washington are going to be there till the bitter end. And they don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And I promise you, when you get to the tops of this, I think that when you become president and you walk into that Oval Office and you think, my God, I did it. And you sit down behind the Resolute desk and you put your hands up, somebody walks through the door, the one that Monica Lewinsky was behind. Remember that one? Somebody walks through that door and says, did you think you were running this place? Isn't that cute? We'll let you pick 1 or 2 things that you promised on your campaign list, and the rest of it, you're not doing any of that. So let's figure out what we're going to do, because the rest of it, we're running. Shocker in a world that we rent our money. United States of America rents their money from somebody. We don't even own our money. The Internal Revenue Service is based in Puerto Rico, and it is a privately held company. It's not even part of our government. You can't make this shit up. I'm sorry if you would have rather had a blue pill this evening, right? That red one sucks. But everybody that's running the world is suspect. But the people that are running our country aren't. They're evil. The Dems had 4 years to out the biggest pedophile in history. And the Republicans spent all that time saying, if I get into office, we're going to out those SOBs. Well, we're here now. And 6 months later, the tune has changed. You know why? Because they're all dirty. Even the ones that weren't touching kids. They all knew about it. They're all dirty. Seriously, think of a neighbor. Could you live next to one for 4 years that you knew was hurting children? You'd go next door and kick the friggin' door in. Do me a favor, everybody. Pray for the world, because it is a dark and an ugly place. This was the most depressing thing I have ever researched. I cannot wait for this to go. I love you guys. I love you for sticking with me through this. I'm going to go delete all of those pictures off of this friggin' hard drive, take a shower, and try to scrub the disgust off of me. And then I'm going to pray. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the evening. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to do a show that's actually going to make you feel a little better. I promise. And if you missed the one I did this morning, you should go check it out. But before you do, don't miss Chase the Heat, South America's last show. Because you know I got a little bit of arrogance. My brother doesn't. But I spent a lot of time as a speaker, and I would have been really proud to have done that show. It's a good one. Thank you, B-Lady. What a cool thing to say. I love you guys. I really do. Thank you for sticking around. I know this was ugly and it probably wasn't a lot of fun. Between now and the next time I see you, which will be tomorrow morning, thank you. Put a little love in your heart. God help us. This planet needs it. Pray that goat is in a better place now. It's a hell of a line, Jake. Have a great night, everybody. I love you. Bye-bye.